Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to One Hub Racing here for round number 11 of the championship. My name is, of course, Michael Edwards, and joining alongside me in the commentary box is the one, the only, Colin Mason. Colin, how are you doing, mate?
Very well, mate. Good evening. One Hub is back, and this one's going to be a belter. Mike, we could be crowning our P2 champion tonight.
Yep, absolutely. And what a circuit to go racing at as well. The penultimate round of the championship. We're here back in the United States, or the Miami Grand Prix. And Cole, a very fast-flowing track, some very tight corners, especially in that turn 14-15 chicane. And very small margin for error as the walls enclose around the track. So you got to make sure you're on point around this circuit.
Yeah, definitely. One small mistake could have big consequences around here, which means, Mike, a high chance of safety cars. So the drivers are going to have to be quite alert to that with the strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have alluded to it already in terms of the Drivers' Championship potentially being decided here tonight. Of course, Rich has done an incredible over the course of the season, as I make sure that I can get the standings up for some reason. My Chrome.
Come on, Michael. Come on, Michael.
Chrome has crashed. Right. We have got it back up. Hopefully now, and we should be able to take you over to the standings here in P2. And okay, lovely. It did reconnect to it. Brilliant. So as you see, Rich leads the way. He's on 143 points as Jay Luke is on 116. 108 points for Jess and Joe on 107 points. And they are the only four drivers within contention of taking the championship here in P2. But in terms of what can happen tonight, Rich can seal it here tonight. And that is exactly what he's going to be looking to do, Cole.
Yes, exactly that. So looking at the permutations of this evening, all Rich needs, I believe, is third place, and that is it. So I'm just checking now. If Rich finishes third with the fastest lap, Rich wins the championship regardless of where J. Luke finishes. So it's very simple maths for J. Luke. He's got to win. He's got to go in, he's got to be brave, and he's just got to go for the outright win and hope that Rich has a bit of a mare.
Yeah, and not only that, you got to look at the up form in recent weeks from Joe, especially Joe, obviously taking a race win in round number 9. Got a 5th place last time out in Abu Dhabi. Jess getting a podium in Abu Dhabi as well, and she's been on a bit of a comeback in the latter stages of the season, very consistent with her results as well. And you got drivers like Papa Squanch that can get in the mix. Salu, who has had brilliant pace, not all the luck going his way, but he's had brilliant pace so far this season, and he could cause some issues. Funky there as well. Nice little battle for a 5th, going down to Quinn in 8th as well. Very close battles between them. You had Leroy with a fantastic 2nd place result in Abu Dhabi last time out, and another driver that can cause problems for these guys fighting for the championship at the top.
Yeah, that's the thing. And of course, they've got nothing to lose being, relatively further down the grid. So they can afford to be far more aggressive than the likes of, J. Luke, Jess, Joe, and Rich. So you might find that they'll be a little bit more cautious, especially when it comes to overtaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen Rich in recent weeks very cautious in his driving approach, and he's not wanting to take any risks because he has literally been thinking about, if he doesn't have the pace of those that are competing with him, minimizes the damage, does not want to make mistakes and end up far down the order. And we've seen J. Luke, obviously, the last couple of races, where the pressure might be getting to him a bit, 'cause we've seen him go for very risky overtakes, and sometimes they've worked off brilliantly, but it shows that the pressure's all on J. Luke to close that gap.
Yeah, exactly that. But I think it's now probably flipped on its head now for these two races now, because the pressure, I think, will switch now on to Rich, because J-Luke's just got to go out there and go for it. Rich has got to be a little bit more smart and just play the percentages a bit. But, Mike, you know as well as anyone, once you get the red mist down, you know, when the green lights go out, it's sometimes quite hard. And you can be overcautious as well, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's happened many times in the past where you're playing it overcautious and all of a sudden you get swamped by 3 or 4 drivers in behind, and you go from backing out of a potential overtaking opportunity to losing out 3 or 4 positions, and that could be the difference in this championship staying alive. Looking at the constructors standings as well, mathematically, I believe it is still possible for Alpine to catch mathematically, if I'm reading this correct.
I will double check that. I think they might have. I think it's. So what have we got? No, I think it is. I think it is done. Yeah, because what have we got? Is 21 points for victory with fastest lap, and then 17, so that's 38. Yeah, so I think that means that Mercedes have clinched it now. I will double check that, but I think they've got it.
Yeah, it's either they've got it or they've got the exact amount of points that they need to stay ahead of Alpine. It's very close. If they have mathematically already won it, congratulations to Mercedes. Incredible season from them. If it is still alive, we could be seeing the constructors completely sealed here tonight, without a shadow of a doubt. But Alpine have had a bit of a recovery over the second half of the season, got themselves into a lovely spot in P2. The battle for P3 in the constructors, though, call heating up with Ferrari and Red Bull, 1 point separating those two teams.
Yeah, look at that. Isn't that close? Unfortunately, for Jess, Catherine's not here this evening, and unfortunately for Quinn, Leroy isn't. So they're both down to one driver at the minute. So it's going to be a battle between Jess and Quinn. Jess fighting for P3 in the constructors, and obviously P3 in the drivers as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. Another interesting battle, 11 points separating 5th down to 8th, with Aston Martin 101 points, 96 points for the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls in 6th place, McLaren in 7th on 91 points, and 90 points for Haas F1. And then it's a big old gap back to the Sauber team in 9th place, and of course Williams there in 10th. On 44 and 34 points respectfully. But Cole, we've had the first runs of laps coming in. I reckon we go back to the track right now, because we've got drivers on their second out laps now. So let's head out to the action out on track. And right now, it is Rich that tops the times.
Yeah, 26.8, a very, very good lap. Almost precisely 0.2 quicker than Papa Squanch. J-Luke yet to set a time. Now, is he deliberately gone out late, or has he invalidated his laps? But he is on a flyer at the moment as he heads down the long back straight before the last corner. I mean, it's not the last corner, but it may as well will be, into the very, very tight left-hander hairpin. We saw Norris ride the curb, losing momentum. Does ride the curb quite a lot there from J-Luke, but heads it now, pins it flat now. Will just about activate DRS as he crosses the line, puts in P3 with a 27.1.
Yeah, and he'll definitely look at that final corner, the last braking zone of the circuit, as an area where he can find a little bit of time. We got Mattis coming into the pit lane. In fact, he's ducked out of it. I'm not sure what's going on there with Mattis. He was almost coming into the pit lane, and then last second he said, "No, I'm actually going to stay out."
Yeah, I don't know. Poor old Matthias got a bit confuddled there, but still up in 6th place, which is a good qualifying. Who else have we got? Jess down in 8th. She'll be hoping for an improvement on that. 2 McLaren boys there in 9th and 10th. Nothing separating them at the minute. Proverb on a outlap with Funky and Rage yet to set a time.
Yeah, we're going to jump on board though with Rich, and he's marginally up in the first sector as he comes down towards the left-hander turn number 11. Of course, three DRS zones, around this circuit. Cole, one down the south in the straight, one down in towards turn number 11, and one, of course, down in towards turn 17. Where we're going to be seeing plenty of overtaking action. That is for sure. 19 corners, 13 to the left, and 6 to the right. And Rich right now, I think he might have just scrubbed off a little bit of time, and he has backed out this lap. But you see he's not using his ERS, as we've got Papa Squanch, who I believe was also let off his lap, and that's Jamie up in the P2. A half a second improvement for the McLaren.
Holy moly.
What a lap from him. Jess going quicker in the middle sector. It's purple on Jess's screen in the middle sector, as we got JR Mason to the line, and he's going to move up into P9. Marginal improvements there for JR Mason, as Quinn improves up into P6. Goes the Scuderia Ferrari. But what about the Red Bull? The Red Bull to the line now. What will this be for Jess as she comes to the line? Marginal improvement, gets back ahead of JR Mason. So maybe losing a bit of time in the first sector for Jess, and not able to hook up the final sector as much as she would have liked.
Yes, but what a lap from Jamie. Now, I know, speaking to Jamie, he was very, very confident around this track. And him whacking it on provisional front row is really showing that he is very confident around here. And just 6,000 separated Jamie and Papa Squads. So very, very tight at the top. I mean, look how close it is at the top. We've said this all season long, Mike. A couple of tenths separate a vast majority of drivers. But I would say, Mike, at the moment, the biggest disappointment is definitely probably Mason down in 10th.
Well, I mean, speaking of Mason, he was called into the drivers' press conference for round number 11, and of course we put the question to him: welcome in, sir. So this season your quality pace at times have been fantastic, but the race days seem to have not been as good. Do you feel you can finish the season strongly and set yourself a great chance for next season? And of course, looking at the response from Mason, I don't believe he has put in a response, which is unfortunate. So we tried to get him into the drivers' press conference, but unfortunately Mason unable to respond. It would have been interesting to see how that would have gone. But in terms of the rivalries, Cole, we did get both our championship protagonists, the two Mercedes drivers, in, and both of us on the commentary have been running a little bit of a Mercedes rivalry. I'm not going to say agenda, because agenda sounds bad, but Calway improves up in the P10.
I think that's fair.
Well, we've been wanting to see the Mercedes going at it and elbows out for the championship, much like Rosberg Hamilton did many years ago in the 2014, 15 and 16 seasons. So we put the question to both Rich and J. Luke. Welcome in. Like in P1, you guys are battling it out for the P2 drivers title. How much does winning the title mean to you guys, and will you be putting in extra practice in order to potentially give yourself an advantage over the other? And looking at the responses, Rich is saying winning the title would be great, but it won't be easy. I'm sure that J. Luke will be pushing his bid for the title strongly in the last two races, and look forward to some more close battles with him. No extra practice for me for Miami, but I'm expecting a safety car or two in brackets or rain. We'll get onto that in just a moment, Cole. And Rich will mean that the race decisions and luck around safety car timings will probably play a big part in the outcome. And he goes on to say, hopefully the racing gods are on his side. The only advantage I have is the points gap, and can afford to not be overly aggressive or ambitious during the race. The battle for the top three in the championship is really hotting up with Joe and Jess, so J. Luke and I can't afford to just concentrate on each other during the race. They will be pushing for great results in Miami as well, and very capable of winning, so this is all going to be very close. And J. Luke's response says, it would mean so much to have taken like a 15/16 month break from racing, come back and be able to win something. As for the races, I will do whatever preparation I can to give Rich a run for his money. May the best Mercedes driver win, and can't wait to have more battles with him. So both of the drivers out there, as Papa Squanch snags provisional pole position.
Wow.
Away from Rich. J. Luke is on a fast lap right now. I'm not sure if he's going to have the fuel to complete this lap and do an in-lap, so he might peel off immediately into the pits. He's probably just going to be pushing to see what he can do and then peel off into the pit lane, see where the time can be gained or lost. But yeah, both drivers very respectful, and Rich alluding to the fact that Jess and Joe are not too far behind, so not only have they got the focus on each other, they can't really count those two out chasing them down behind.
No, that's right. They've got to be quite wary of them because, you know, they're fighting for that third place position, which, don't forget, is a nice trophy at the end of the season as well. But what a lap by Papa Squanch there. 3/10 quicker than Rich. Well, 2.5. But that is a cracking lap by Papa Squanch. And he's been so unfortunate this year, hasn't he? He's had so many disconnections which have ruined his race. You feel as though he would have been far higher up the table if he wasn't so lucky with his connection issues. But look at the two Mercedes, Mike. Just a 10th between them.
Yeah, and this is where it's going to get very spicy. And obviously, in the rivalries, they alluded to the weather. And let's talk about the weather for the race. 2 seconds, you recall. Very wet, too wet to dry.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. So, we know for a fact the drivers are going to have to start on the full wet tyres. They're at some point going to have to make the call to go on to inters. And then when they go on the inters, they're going to make a call to go on the dries, if it gets to that point. And look at that, Mason there, up into P2. So we had a pole timeout, which gave him, I believe, I think it was his 9th pole in his One Hub career, which a pretty bonkers stat is that he is now 11th on the all-time poles list for One Hub, with over 400 drivers on that database. Guys, you could, for people in the Discord, you can check out the database. It is in the Discord and all the stats are there. But yeah, so an absolutely brilliant stat for Mason to keep, and he puts it on the front row. Jamie, his teammate, in 5th. So they're going to be both delighted with that at the minute. Quinn there up now into 7th place, but look how many people are on our outlap, Mike. This is going to change quickly.
Yeah, and I'm currently on board with the man who's currently in 8th place, and Salu is looking a pretty decent lap for him so far, coming down into the braking at turn 17. Getting the car hooked in 3rd gear, the gear of choice there for the Alpine. To the line will come Salu. Is it going to be front row for the Alpine? Yes, it is, as he just snags it away from J.R. Mason in the end. As on outlaps right now, you've got Rich just ahead of J. Luke on track, and I'm keeping an eye on this battle right now because we can switch back and forth immediately between these two drivers. Papa Squanch out there is about to get his lap underway as well, and that is a bad first couple of corners for Rich. He's getting caught onto the curbs early on, and that is not ideal for him. But let's see what the first sector split is going to say for the championship leader as he comes through the left-hander of, I believe that is turn number, well, there's so many like small corners there, so I probably would need to get the track map up for this one. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I missed it. It was turn number 7. I was going to say turn number 7, but Joe with an improved lap time goes up into P2. One of the championship antagonists, the man battling for P3 in the championship with Jess. Jess out there on a lap as well. She is a little bit further back, and Rich over 2.5 tenths up on his lap time. And J. Luke, we didn't get a chance to see J. Luke's middle sector split there, but This could be big from Rich as he doesn't have to snag a pole position away from Papa Squanch as Jess there pops up, splitting the two Mercedes drivers into P6. To the line will come Rich. Is it going to be the pole position for Rich? P3. J. Luke a 10th up on his lap time. And he goes P2.
Oh, look at that. J. Luke goes, thank you very much. I'll P2. And look how close it was at the top. A 10th between 4 drivers, Mike. Absolutely stunning.
Absolutely incredible stuff there as Papa Squanch takes another pole position this season. J. Luke joins him on the front row. Joe in between both of the Mercedes drivers and the championship rivals, let's say, because it is still possible for Joe to overturn the points haul and get himself back into this. And Joe is in a fantastic spot. Jess down in P8. What can she do from there? I mean, we know Jess is, in terms of race pace, very consistent, keeps herself out of trouble. So in the treacherous conditions that we're going to have, Cole, it's going to be interesting to see if Jess is going to be able to cut through the field in a cool, calm manner, because Jess has done it in the past.
She has done it in the past. She's more than capable of doing it again. But with the weather that it is, it's going to be tricky for drivers to stay on their track on their own. It's going to be so difficult for these drivers. You know, how much practice have they done in these full wet conditions, you know, in racing modes? Obviously, there's not going to be the help of DRS at the start either, Mike.
No, absolutely not. But one more time, let's run you through the order real quick. Papa Squanch, J. Luke, Joe, Rich, Salu, Mason, Funky, Jess, Jamie, Cowboy, Quinn, Matthias, Rageman, Skrillex, Geist, and Whoopin' Proper going to be starting at the back of the field. And that is a very, very pacey rundown of the grid order, I might say myself.
Right, I'm going to leave it for 10 seconds next week, all right? See if you can beat your record.
Always 10 seconds. Absolutely fantastic. But now qualifying is over and done with. Papa Squanch picking up the pole position point is going to be very interesting. J. Luke, I think, has just taken the early psychological advantage of starting directly in front of Rich, because obviously in terms of the grid spots, Rich is going to be looking directly at that rear wing of J. Luke, and he's going to have Joe, another championship protagonist, alongside him. That is going to be interesting dynamic for Rich. Rich, obviously, he has the points gap. He's going to be cool and calm going into turn number 1. If you're J. Luke, are you looking to be aggressive immediately, get past Papa Squanch, and try to get yourself up where you need to almost immediately at the start?
Yeah, so Rich is in a very awkward position, to be honest, because he can't just say, I'll be very cautious going into turn 1, I'll be fine, because he could end up getting collected from behind. So he's got to be relatively, aggressive to stay out of trouble, if that makes sense. But, of course, wet weather conditions, it's going to be so tricky, Mike. This is going to be very, very difficult at the start. Expect to see a few incidents in those first couple of laps. And the two Mercedes drivers are going to be very, very keen not to be one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could be seeing... obviously, the one thing that J. Luke does not want to do is try to get an overtake done nice and early on Papa Squanch and have that door open for Rich to follow him through, because he does not want Rich directly behind him. And that's been the issue for J. Luke now in recent weeks. Whenever he has been ahead of Rich, he's gone for the move and he's got it done. But the door's open for Rich to follow him through almost immediately, which limits the kind of gap that J. Luke can get to his teammate. And Rich has been very smart in terms of the way he's driving, just allowing his teammate to do the dirty work and then following him through.
Yeah, exactly that. And of course, Rich doesn't need to beat J. Luke. He can just sit behind him now for the next couple of races and go, that's fine. You can be ahead of me. That's not a problem as long as I'm right on your rear wing. J. Luke obviously not in that position. So J. Luke is going to be, I expect to see him very aggressive with Papa Squanch into turn 1.
Yeah, and let's not forget Joe as well in this. And how aggressive is Joe going to be? Because remember, he still has an outside chance of the Drivers' Championship. He is some way behind, but if he has a big result versus Rich here tonight, he could get himself on the fringes of the championship battle going into the final round in Belgium next week. But it's a very outside chance for both Joe and Jess going into tonight, Cole.
It is, but with the conditions and the type of track it is, it's not out of the realms of possibility for Rich and J. Luke to get a DNF, which would be disastrous for the pair of them, really, because then it puts them under pressure. You know, then if you're talking about Joe potentially winning the race and Jess second, that would put J. Luke in fourth position in the championship, not even second. So it's gonna, it's gonna be very, very interesting. Say again, sorry, mate.
And they would put him at the championship entirely because he'd be too
exactly
far
that.
Rich.
Yeah, so he would be toast then. That would be his championship done, and he'll be then fighting for just the top three. So these, like old Murray used to say, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, looking at again of how some of the drivers responded to the media day questions. Of course, we did get a couple of questions come in for, of course, the pre-race interviews. Question number one, we put everyone, welcome all to Miami. What are your opinions of a relatively new circuit on the calendar? J. Luke saying he does enjoy Miami. It's a great track with ample opportunities for a good race. Funky saying he's not really a fan. Cowboy saying I like the track, it has good rhythm. And running through some more responses. But yeah, Matthias says I like the track and I've had good results on the track, so looking to try and replicate that. Salu says it's a mixed bag for me, this one. When you get every corner hooked up, it's fun, but the braking zones can be tricky as can the rear traction. Overall, I think I like it, but certainly not my favorite. Jess saying she's not feeling too confident. I usually get very unlucky around here in any Miami race that she does, so hopefully it will turn around for her here tonight. Joe saying he's not overly a big fan of it, so it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, Cole. Like the variation of opinions coming in from the drivers here in P2.
Yeah, exactly that. And this the Miami circuit has been renewed. I think it's something daft like 2041. I think something silly like that.
Yep.
So the drivers are gonna have to learn it because it's going to appear for many years to come. So, but I actually quite like the circuit as a challenge. There's some very, very fast sections, despite it being a street circuit. Especially towards the end of Sector 1. And then you've got the quite slow and clumsy chicanes towards the end of the lap, where I think we're going to see quite a few mistakes, especially in the rain, Mike. They're tricky yeses at the best of times, lethal in wet conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, before we head into the race, a massive shout out to our sponsors and partners here at One Hub Racing. Of course, Next Level Racing. Of course, to Pure Sim Gear. To Vespertwin, as well as, of course, Sim Grid. And last but not least, the Mental Health Foundation. As the grid are readying up, getting themselves ready to go into the lobby. Cole, both of us in the past, we've had many times where we've sat on the grid trying to get ourselves psyched up in the midst of a absolute downfall of a red race in terms of the conditions at the start. What would be your biggest advice to all the drivers out there in P2 going into these 5 red lights now?
Oh, I mean, the biggest deal with the wet weather is, and usually with the F1 games, is rear traction. So possibly, use a higher gear when you're coming out of slow corners, because that's usually where drivers spin it in the rain, is on the exit of corners. It's got visibility as well, Mike's going to be so difficult. So, be very aware. Don't be over aggressive. And it's a long old race, and they know that the weather is going to improve as well. So the last thing they want to do is bang their front wing on the first couple of laps. Let's just hope for a clean start, Mike. But, I mean, Mike, you've been in positions before yourself where you're on the grid fighting for championships. What do you think's going to be going through Jay Luke's mind and Rich's mind with these wet conditions and a championship on offer?
I mean, hopefully they don't follow suit in my footsteps and absolutely bottle it, because that's what I've done previously in these situations. But it's one of them ones where obviously you just got to keep yourself nice and calm, keep it all collected in the early stages, feel out the track. Obviously, the formation lap for me has always been crucial. Just one, test the grip off the line first and foremost. Two, to test your braking in towards turn number one. Like, how bad is that braking in towards turn number one going to be for you? And do you feel more confident braking a little bit later, or do you feel that you need to brake a little bit earlier? That's going to be the thing, I think, early on for these guys when they're on the formation lap. Just making sure that they can test the braking for these corners and test the launch of the line. Once they've done that, obviously just focus on making sure you get yourself that good launch off the start, and then just keep it nice and calm through all the corners. You know where your braking points are, you know where the grip is, and just calmer.
Another interesting thing, Mike, is that has any of these drivers said, I'm going to gamble on a full wet setup, or I'm going to gamble on a full dry setup? Because, we know that it's clearing towards the end of the race. Is it going to clear enough for slicks? That we don't know at this stage. But are we going to see drivers go, I'm going to go in a full wet setup and I'll deal with it when it dries up? Or are we going to see drivers go a full dry setup and say, I'll deal with it until the dry comes and then let's go for it? It's going to be very interesting, Mike. This race, it's not going to be easy, and I'm just looking at the conditions, Mike, on the formation lap, and there's puddles everywhere. It's like a lake. It's going to be so difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's have a little look at the conditions out there on track, and it is absolutely thundering it down here in Miami. And you mentioned the puddles. You can see them absolutely everywhere, as you can see every single driver going for the full wet compound tyres. And honestly, that would have been a big gamble as well for anyone thinking, we know it's going to get lighter. Do you risk the inters at the start?
That is a good shout. And I think if you're near the back, it's almost worth a punt. But looking at the grid, Mike, every single driver is starting on the wet tyres. But Mike, I think you would have been onto something there. I think that's quite an interesting call. It would have been very brave. It would have been but all the drivers have decided, no, thank you, I want the full wet.
Yeah, and it all depends on, of course, like how long the heavy rain sticks around for, as well. But obviously, I mean, it's just one of those strategies, Carl. It's one of those strategies, and obviously, speaking as a driver that usually has to think of alternative ways and that to try and get himself through the field. That's just how my brain works now. Do you go very risky early on? Minimize your time in the pit lane by going for a different strategy. It's very easy to do, very easy to pull off.
Yes, it is. It's going to be interesting as well to see if anyone decides to do a very early stop to come off the wets. We'll keep an eye on the weather. We'll see when it does improve. There's obviously not a hint of a dry line at the minute, Mike. But as the drivers now, Mike, they are forming up on the grid. Let's hope no one does a Norris and drives past their pit box. Everyone seems to have lined up well on the grid.
Yep, they absolutely have. And Cole, before we go to those 5 red lights, your top 3. In fact, never mind, we've got the 5 red lights coming right now. 3, 4, 5 red lights gets underway here in Miami. Lights out, and we are underway. A initial good launch here for J. Luke, but the second phase of the traction goes the way of Papa Squanch. And look at the poor start that Joe's had, bogged down off the line, and he's been overtaken by both Rich and side by side with his teammate Salu.
Yeah, I mean, he was swamped there. A great start from Papa Squanch. And J. Luke, he really had a... didn't he? And he's now right on the back of Papa Squanch already. But look at the spray, Mike. The visibility is so low. Very difficult. Oh, as Papa Squanch is hugely sideways. Rage Man, unfortunately, dropping down the order. He's now in 15th place.
Yeah, and Rich already outside that 1 second on J. Luke, so maybe a difference in terms of the setups going on there, Cole. You mentioned earlier who risks a wet setup to a dry setup. No one is going to dry later. Maybe J. Luke has opted for a more wet setup, and Rich opting for more of a changeable condition setup.
Could very well be that, because Rich at the minute, he seems to be struggling a bit. He's got Salo all over the back of him, but don't forget, there's no DRS, so the manoeuvres that these drivers have got to do, it's got to be under braking or better exit coming out of the corners. They have not got that straight line speed, but look how close Salo is behind Rich. Is he going to be able to have a go in the hairpin, Mike?
Well, he's not using his battery to full effect. He's tucked into the slipstream though. But he's not going to go for anything in towards turn 17. He's going to sit in behind the Mercedes for the time being, sit and wait for the opportunity. And obviously, another thing we got to point out as well, Cole, and this could be crucial in the race. If Rich stays relatively close to J. Luke, which obviously the gap is 2 seconds on the first lap, so you'd imagine that Rich would be falling away if this continues on. The pit stop phases, when it is time to go for the intermediates, he could get held up by his teammate in the pits and lose multiple positions.
Yeah, that's a valid point. You know, it's so important to be ahead of your teammate really in these conditions. But Rich is really struggling, isn't he? He is holding up Salo. I mean, look at the gap, Mike. Only a couple of seconds ago, you said 2 seconds. It's already over 2.5. So, Rich, has he, like you said, Mike, is he on the dry setup? Because at the moment, he is struggling.
I don't think he's gone for a pure dry setup. I think he's opted for a bit of a mixed bag setup. You know, something that you would run in like an intermediate conditions where it's going dry. Yeah. But is really struggling here in the wet, and he's run deep into the left-hander, and that is going to allow Salo to try and hold it around the outside, but he's not going to be able to pull it off. We got Joe just in behind there. I think I had a little bit of a mistake. He was over a second back, but as I was saying with the Mercedes double stack, this will be heartbreak for Joe because Salo being directly in front of him, and Salo now actually going to be drawing alongside Rich 500 here, side by side the championship leader and the Alpine running down in towards the hairpin, and Salo is going to be ahead of Rich going into the braking, and Joe losing out to Funky as well.
Well, that has really turned this on its head now. Rich really struggling for pace as J. Luke sets the fastest lap with a 42.2. Only half a second behind Papa Squanch and 4 seconds clear of Salo. They are demolishing the field at the minute. Can Salo try and close that gap? And Rich now, Mike, he's got Funky to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rich is falling back here. Absolutely falling back. He's already a second behind Salo already. And Salo's only made a 10th of an inroad on the guys in front. So that shows the pace difference at the moment for Rich versus some of these guys in behind. And this could be a heartbreak for Rich. This is exactly what J. Luke wants to see, and that is Rich falling back into the clutches of the drivers in behind. Obviously, we've got a bit of a gap that formed between Mason and Quinn. Of course, they were battling into the hairpin, so hopefully no contact happened there between those two. But Mason under a bit of pressure from Skrillex in P8. Funky getting through on Rich up to P4, and that is a big move there from Funky on Rich, and one that Rich can't really afford to have happen much more to him, because in terms of the permutations for tonight, if Rich finishes fifth and J. Luke finishes second, which is where he is right now, he's got he would championship alive.
Yeah, he would not be champion. Yeah, if the positions stayed as they are, the championship will be decided in Belgium. So Rich really struggling, and look, Joe is now on the back of him as well. As Mason has dropped down the order as well. He's down in 12th place at the minute. I'm just going to check to see whether he's got any damage. No, I don't think so. No, he's just not the greatest in these conditions, Mike, but I'm sure the race will come back to him towards the end.
Yep, possibly. And right now, Rich, he's over a second behind Funky already. Rich is really struggling in these conditions. And, I mean, you're seeing Quinn. Quinn is closing up to the back of Joe and Rich right now. And I think Rich is, in these full wet conditions, is dropping like a stone in a lake, as it is a lake out there on track. As Quinn there tapping the wall on the exit of turn 7 and 8, and that's going to lose him all the momentum in the world, turning down in towards the breaking for turn 12, I believe.
Well, one thing I'm very impressed with, Mike, is the standard of these drivers in these treacherous conditions. I don't think I've seen a spin. There's no damage. Absolutely brilliant driving by the entire grid. And it's all still pretty close as well. So no one's made dramatic mistakes, minor mistakes here or there. But absolutely brilliant driving. Is the fact that it's drying out, Mike, is that going to be on their mind not to push too hard?
Potentially, I think for Rich right now, this is absolutely perfect for him, and even Joe, because they've lost a decent amount of time, that they're not really going to get held up much in terms of the pit lane in terms of their teammates pitting on the same lap as them for the intermediates when it is time to switch over to them. And we are starting to see a bit of a line begin to form on the racing line.
Yes, I was just about to say that, Mike, that it does seem a dry line is starting to appear. And, Quinn channeling his inner Colin McRae there as he was broad sideways round the turn, just about catching it, still right behind Joe, who is fast approaching on Rich. But Mike, still very close between the grid. Salo is holding J. Luke at 4 seconds, which shows the great wet pace that Salo has.
Yeah, Salo, he's holding on to that 4 second gap. He's got a 4 second gap to Funky in behind. And I think for Salo, unfortunately for him, qualifying might have just let him down, because in the race he's definitely got the pace to match J. Luke and Papa Squancher. But in terms of just the position, he's had a lot of cars to try and get through. And he's lost a lot of time by doing that, as Quinn right underneath that rear wing of the Alpine, and the Alpine's right underneath the rear wing of the Mercedes. And that gap to Skrillex moments ago was close to 3 seconds. It's now down to less than 2 seconds, Cole. So Rich right now, being the lead car in this train, is hindering Joe and Quinn in this race.
Yeah, he's really struggling, isn't he? Is he just being cautious
Quinn.
as Quinn attempts down the inside, side by side as they come through the exit? Who's going to come out and Quinn nearly loses it. No, he's in the pits, Mike. Quinn is in the pit lane. He's decided he wants some intermediate tyres. This is very interesting. The first driver to blink. Now, let's just check. Is he going on the inters? Yes, he is.
And Jess following.
Wow.
Jess following suit. Jamie following suit as well. This could be a big gamble that could pay off for these three drivers right here. I mean, we mentioned that the line is starting to dry out just a little bit, so it might be time for the intermediates. Time will tell, and let's see the gap from. In fact, let's go gap to leader real quick and just see if there is the intermediates coming into play here through the first sector, and it looks like it's marginal right now. It's marginal. I think it's on the teetering edge.
Yeah, there is still a bit of standing water you can see, especially when the drivers go offline. So overtaking is going to be very difficult for the intermediate drivers. But have they pulled a masterstroke here? Are any other drivers? It's still raining relatively heavily. But you can see the dry line is starting to appear, Mike. Which means that these wet tyres, they are not going to be in their optimum now. Are we going to see the likes of Papa Squanch peel off into the pit lane? No. So Papa Squanch carries on. Same as J-Luke. Stallo, look at how difficult it is on traction for these drivers. J-Luke sets the fastest lap of the race. But no one is boxing yet, Mike. This is just the 3 so far. Now, we know that Mason and Jamie are in a party talking. Is Mason going to peel off into the pit lane for intermediates? Yes, he does.
As well as Mason.
So, let's wait and see now who pulls the trigger. Oh, it's Papa Squanch's round. Oh, no, he just caught it. He must have lost an acre of time to J-Luke there. How he didn't lose that car, I have no idea.
Well, I think J-Luke has slammed on the brakes and has reacted to that, because the gap that Salo has gained already is around about 0.6 of a second, and the gap between J-Luke and Papa Squanch is still around about a second. So I think more so they've lost time to Salo more than losing time to each other.
Yeah, you can see Salo now under 3 seconds behind, so he's gained a second in the last couple of laps. Is he a bit kinder on his tyres? But I'm just looking at well, I'll pay very close attention to the gap between Quinn and Proverb. Proverb on the wets, Quinn on the intermediates, as poor Proverb gets a 3-second time penalty. I expect to see a lot more of them when it dries up as well, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, right now we're seeing the race leader Papa Squanch into the pit lane. J-Luke stays out, Salo stays out, and Papa Squanch is going to jump in now, put on a set of the intermediate tyres. Will Funky follow him in? No. What about Rich? Rich stays out as well. And Joe is in. This could be big from Joe. And let's see what Quinn has done relative to Joe on these inters right now. Because remember, Quinn was directly behind Rich, and he was just ahead of Joe when he came into the pit lane. So let's see what the Scuderia Ferrari is going to be doing versus the Alpine here as he starts the southern straight. And there's the indicator right there. Fastest lap from Quinn.
Wow.
The intermediates are the tyres to be on right now. And that potentially not following in Papa Squanch for J-Luke and for Salo as well, for that fact, might have just cost him a decent chunk of time in this race to Papa Squanch.
Yeah, the Inters now, they are considerably quicker than the wet tyres at this stage. So the drivers who are still out on the wets, they are losing heaps of time. So this race order is going to change dramatically. I think Papa Squanch will obviously still be leading this race, but the 5 drivers still currently on the wets, they are going to find it very, very difficult now to hold on to their position. So we've got J-Luke, Salo, Funky, Rich and Matthias all on the wet weather tyres. Mike, surely they've got to come in this lap.
They've got to respond. They've got to be in this lap. And I'm looking at that gap, what's called, obviously, that Quinn has now to Joe. And I'm thinking what's going to happen to Rich. I think there's a possibility Rich comes out behind Jess.
Wow, that's going to be disastrous for the Mercedes driver. As, yeah, they can see now J-Luke and Salo in the pit lane. Rich, he's quite far behind, so he's not going to get held up by his teammate in the pit lane.
Yeah, but let's see the gap now that Papa Squanch is going to have. As Papa Squanch already down the starting straight in towards turn number 1. And yeah, he's going to be miles ahead of the Mercedes. But now we got to see if J-Luke has the pace catch up, as it is 3 seconds. We lost 2 seconds in that pit lane phase. Rich is coming on the southern straight. He's going to be behind Joe, I believe. Skrillex getting through as well, possibly. No, Skrillex just in behind. So Yeah, I mean, Richie lost time to Joe. He's lost time to Quinn, who has managed to jump himself up ahead of Funky. So that's how much time Quinn has gained in this race. Perfect for Ferrari in terms of the constructors. Remember, it's only Quinn and Jess here tonight representing Red Bull and Ferrari. Safety car here deployed lap 9 of 29.
Wow.
And right now, I can tell you, J. Luke, Salu, Funky, and Rich are livid that this has come out right at this moment and not not last lap.
What now? What are the drivers going to do? I don't suppose any of them are going to pit here because they know that the dry weather's coming. So the safety car was caused by Paul Rage. He's lost the entirety of his front wing, so he's going to have to box again. He's now down in 15th place. But I'm just curious to see if anyone, Mike, is going to try and box.
I don't think so.
Now, what's interesting, if this doesn't dry up, they might be able to stay on the intermediate tyres right till the end, Mike, if they box now. And they would have completed their 2 stops. It's a big risk, don't get me wrong. But if you're Mason and Jamie, it's possibly worth a punt because you're not going to lose that many places. And it might be worthwhile giving it a go. But any drivers listening to the stream, please be very careful of your Delta with the safety car. We don't want any drive-throughs spoiling your race, so just be very aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of people risking it right now for the Inders, me personally, I wouldn't, just for the simple fact of if you feel that it's going to get to the dry compounds, obviously the safety car will help it get to the dry compounds as well. There's no real benefit really in dropping the huge amount of track position that you would lose by pitting for maybe a couple of percentage better on your tyres. There's no real benefit for it. But Jamie has come into the pits and he is going to try it. And Rageman obviously getting our front wing repaired, as you mentioned. But what this has done now is bunched everyone back up. Salu now has a chance of battling with Papa Squanch and J. Luke here. And that could be important for the Drivers' Championship. You got Rich now, who is down in P7, so he did lose a couple of positions in the pit stop phases. Losing out to Quinn and Joe. And I believe right now, J. Luke would need to finish on the podium as long as Rich stays 7th to keep the championship alive. But does Rich have better intermediate pace than he does full wet pace? That's going to be the question.
Yeah, that is very key. And is it because some of the other drivers around him went for that more wet weather setup and Rich went for a slightly drier setup? Is this race going to come back to him? That's the key thing here. But drivers now, they're going to be back with their cold tyres. Oh, as Quinn nearly understeered into the wall on the last corner. So it just shows how important it is to keep temperature in the tyres. It's still raining out there, so these intermediate conditions are going to last for a good few laps yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, if I am... Oh, it's Mason's in the pits as well, so Mason going to get the second pit stop out of the way also. What I was going to say... obviously with Jamie, Rageman, Geese and now Mason obviously having to close back up to the field, they can test out just how much grip they have in some of these corners, because they can essentially push a little bit in these corners just to see where the temps are, just to see where the grip is. They're going to build up the temperatures in their tyres, so they should be relatively warm compared to the rest of the field. And they'll have a much better understanding of the intermediate in these conditions versus the drivers that are stuck under the safety car right now.
Yeah, exactly that. They can push. They can also get their tyres up to a decent temperature, because I believe the Delta would have gone now. So they can really warm their tyres up now and get them in a nice place. And like you said, Mike, they're going to have an idea of where the braking zones are, etc. But I'm just trying to look now, because what have we got? We are still 18 laps to go. So with this safety car, I do suspect that we'll probably see dry weather conditions, but you know, we've seen it done in the past where drivers have stretched the inters out under relatively bone dry conditions, and it's worked out for them. I suspect, Mike, that the safety car will be coming in very shortly.
Yeah, I have a feeling the safety car should be in on this particular lap. It might be a late call because Geese now coming through in towards the slower corners of 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 and of course 16, but actually it might stay out another lap. It is going to stay out another lap, Cole.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So this, I wouldn't say guarantees dry weather, but it certainly increases the likelihood that we'll be seeing slicks at some point during this race. Not what Mason, Jamie and Rage would have wanted. I think they would have wanted it to come in as soon as possible, Mike.
Well, obviously we're not privy to what the race engineers are saying to the drivers out there on track. I can imagine everyone right now is furiously checking their weather reports and just to see what is going on, to see how long they got this rain for. It could be 10 to 15 minutes, which potentially could take them to the end of the race, essentially. It could be 5 to 10 minutes, which means that around lap 20 to lap 25 we should be seeing the track dry up, and the switch to the dries may be a viable option towards the end of the race. But of course it comes to a case of as well, Cole, how quickly does the track dry up?
Exactly that. You know, it could stop raining, but it could take 5 laps to the point where slicks are the way to go. So it's going to be very difficult for these drivers to make that call. All we know at this point is that, if I just get the graphic up, let's have a look. So the last 4 drivers, so Mason, Jamie, Rage and Guess, they don't have to make another stop. Every other driver, so that's the top 12, they still need to do their second pit stop. So they've got to stop. The bottom 4 don't have to if they don't want to.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting for Jamie and Mason. Obviously, the two drivers that are relatively good at scoring points in these kind of conditions. They do navigate it well. They may not be getting race wins or podiums on a regular basis in these kind of conditions, but they usually go about their business nice and calmly to gain some good points. And with them having the option of potentially going all the way to the end, if they can keep pace somewhat, respectable with the guys at the top, they could be in a position where it could be a double McLaren podium, but way too early to predict the podium at this stage in the race, as Papa Squanch controls the pace and is going to get us back underway. So Cole, would you like to get us underway for the safety car restart?
And here we go then, Papa. He's gone. He has nailed it. He is now leading the race as they cross the line. They head into turn 1. But look how close J. Luke is. Is he going to have a go? Oh, he thinks about it. He thought about it, Mike, but thought better of it. But J. Luke's going to have a great run on him. It's a lovely, clean restart. And they're all very, very, very as they head into the very fast section. Can J. Luke find any way past it? You can see him. He's willing Papa Squanch out of the way. But a great restart from Papa Squanch as they navigate down the fast back straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And now J. Luke using a bit of the battery as Papa Squanch obviously in hot lap and now trying to hold on to his position. Salu there around about half a second back. You got Quinn now in the mix. Rich and Joe are already out of potential DRS range once it does get to the dry conditions of Funky. So the top 5 have broken away from Joe, and Rich appears to be falling into the clutches of Skrillex here.
He does, doesn't he? He still doesn't look comfortable out there. He's getting it. If I didn't know better, he's on a full dry setup because he's really struggling under braking. He's really struggling on exits, and he's struggling to stay with Joe at the minute. I think he's praying for this rain to end, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely, but it is not ending just yet. Papa Squanch, a new fastest lap of the race, a 1:37.7 from him. And J. Luke, this is where J. Luke needs to keep in mind right now just where he is in this race. He can happily, as long as he stays close to Papa Squanch, and make sure he doesn't lose time in the pit stop race as he did on the switch from the wets to the inters. He could, of course, be in a good position where he is that second car in the DRS of the race leader on the final lap. He could play those DRS games, but he does need to kind of break away from Salu. And Salu, right now, doing a fantastic job. We've broken away from Quinn, so we've got a battle for P4 now between Skrillex, sorry, not Skrillex, Funky and Quinn here, side by side down. Oh! Big contact there between the pair of them. On the straight, I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but visually it looked like a massive collision.
It really did, Mike. I can't see any damage on either car, but it looked as though there was big contact between the two drivers. Quinn there getting up into fourth place, but Funky right on the tail, and it's cost them a lot of time. Now only two seconds behind Salo, who is right on the back of J. Luke.
Yeah, Salo really putting the pressure on J. Luke right now. Speaking of pressure being on, Rich currently in 7th place has fallen away. Oh, Matthias did diving one on the inside of Skrillex. They both run deep, and that's allowed Cowboy through. And Cowboy saying, thank you very much. I'll take those 2 positions. Thank you. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, I think Matthias has got front wing damage. Yes, he does, which in these conditions, Mike, is horrific for the drivers. He's going to have chronic understeer. I suspect that he'll be boxing very soon because he's going to be really struggling with that car. Jess now in 11th place, but right behind Matthias, who's got Proverb right on the back as well. Yeah, you can see how much Matthias is struggling now. He's going to have to box.
Yeah, and Jess needs a good launch here out of turn 7 through turn 8 to really get this move done on the RB, because the last thing she wants is to be stuck behind Matthias here and lose out to the guys up ahead, and that's exactly what is happening. Rich, by the way, 2 seconds off the back of Joe. Joe's back in this battle with Quinn and Funky. Rich does not have the pace here in the wet weather at the moment.
He doesn't. He's really struggling. It could be just a case of Rich just taking it easy and just playing the percentages as he's able to do, and making sure that he's not going to make any mistakes. You know, he might be doing, the great Alan Prost. The phrase that Alan Prost always used to use was his target was to win the race in the slowest possible time. That was always Prost's attitude. One of the reasons why he is one of the greats and a 4-time world champion. And is Rich doing something similar? Just play the percentages, take your time, make sure there's no mistakes. But he is lacking pace at the moment.
Well, here is the question now, Cole. Here is the big question. When does it go to the dry compound tyres? When will it happen? I wish I could hear the race engineers telling the drivers right now how much longer until this rain stops on track. I wish I had that kind of information, and we are seeing it's getting lighter. The rain is falling lighter out there on track, and the dry line is forming a lot more now on the racing line.
It definitely is, Mike, but it is still raining. But like you said, there is a dry line appearing. Who's going to be the first to take a punt onto the slick tyres? And is it going to be mediums or soft? Depends on how much time is left. But we're already on lap 16 and 19, so it's going to be very late in the race, Mike.
Yeah, and Salu putting J. Luke under big pressure for P2 in this race at top of the rear, coming through the chicane from Salu on J. Luke, giving him a little nudge along. And J. Luke lucky to still be within a second of Papa Squanch in this race. And it looks like these are the 3 guys to keep an eye on, Cole, with regards to potentially taking the race win here tonight. Salu doing a fantastic job in terms of getting himself up the order. He's in a podium position right now. and he's looking very, very good for some big punch here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember exactly what race it was, Mike, but it was a few races back where we had wet weather conditions, and Salah was an absolute machine in the qualifying. I think he was something like 7/10 anyway. So he's got some Suzuka, yeah, I think you're right, and he's got great wet weather pace. You can see now. I'm almost certain he is getting held up by J-Luke. Mike, this is the closest I've seen him at this stage. Is he going to have a go?
Potentially, and I'm going to have to apologise as Geist has popped on the set of the medium compound tyres as my controller is disconnecting because it's a dodgy controller.
Yeah, so Geist there, he's the first to try out the slick tyres. So this will give us a really good indication of whether it's too soon or about right. It's still raining at the minute. So it's going to be, let's take a look now at his first sector. And he's got to take it very easy. Yeah, it's very difficult for him. He's really struggling. So I think it is too soon at the moment. Salo there in third place. You can see him hunted down. He's so close to having a go on J-Luke. Oh, and that's showing that it's too early, Mike.
Yep, absolutely. And in terms of the pace and that for the first sector, he wasn't losing a huge amount of time. He was only losing like a tenth or two. So maybe in about 3-4 laps time, we could be seeing the dries potentially be on par with the Inders. And obviously this will all depend on whether or not the rain will stop falling on track. It is still coming down right now. So the smart call would be to stick on the Inders. J-Luke getting all out of shape there. And that's going to allow now Salu to get tucked in right underneath, but Salu clips the outside curb and that's giving him a little bit of a slide. But Salu, closer than he's been recently, is potentially going to try and go for the move here. He is closing in with the slipstream. He's not using his ERS, he's just got straight line speed, and fantastic from Salu. Gets the traction he needs and flies past the Mercedes, the championship challenger. J-Luke now down to third place.
Wow, that's brilliant driving from Salo. His pace is brilliant. I expect him to get on the back of Papa Squanch here, such as his pace, because he was clearly quite significantly held up by J-Luke for a number of laps here. Can he close to the back of Salo? Don't forget, he has crossed the line first, but a steward's decision later on in the week cruelly took the race win away from Salo because J-Luke got a unjustified 3-second penalty, which cost Salo the victory and handed it to J-Luke. So Salo yet to win a race, Mike, but he's put himself in a great position now.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this is all going to come down to whether or not Salo's got the pace closing on Papa Squanch in the remainder of these intermediate conditions. And when that switch happens to the dry tyres, you're seeing J-Luke is getting all out of shape as the tyres are beginning to wear now, Cole. And the grip is getting much difficult to control because it has basically, I mean, momentarily there I thought the rain had stopped, but it's still coming down marginally. But look at the track, it's already looking pretty dry out there.
It is. I think we're only a lap or two away, Mike. But Geist is really struggling on those medium tyres at the minute. He was spinning down the straight. He couldn't even put his foot down the straight. But surely we're only a lap or two away from slicks here, Mike. I don't think... I think it's that this is... Yeah, you can see. I'm just on board Papa Squanch, Mike.
The rain has stopped.
And it's got to be close to slicks.
The rain has stopped.
So who's going to make the call first, Mike? And it's going to be so key. Who picks that perfect time to box? On board Papa Squanch. Is he going to pit? Let's have a look.
Yeah, he's in.
As he comes out of the last quarter. Yeah, he's in the pit lane, Mike.
He's in, but will the track take a few extra laps to dry up as J-Luke carries on? This is bold from J-Luke as it could be just a little bit too soon for the slick tyres, and this could put the advantage back in J-Luke's hands. as Rich, Joe, Quinn, Funky all into the pits. Cowboy stays out. Medium tyres for Papa Squanch and Salu. Skrillex a 10-second time penalty for speeding into the pit lane. Not going to help his cause in securing some big points here. But it's going to be ever so interesting in terms of the conditions. And you're seeing, it is still a little bit too early for the dries because Papa Squanch is losing time. Well, he was losing time to Cowboy, and he is still losing time to Cowboy.
Yeah, I think it's too soon, Mike. Look, he's all over the shop.
And that's going to allow
we got a yellow flag.
Salo could possibly go for the net race lead on Papa Squanch here. It does look like it's too early for the dry tyres. In some of these corners, very difficult on traction, very difficult in terms of grip right now, but is it about to switch back? Contact there! Salo hits the back of Papa Squanch, and all this by Yurkol is just losing these two time hand over fist and giving the race lead to J. Luke here. And this is big for J. Luke in terms of the championship, because right now Cowboy is going to be gaining time on Rich, and Jamie is sticking out on those inters for the time being. J. Luke is now into the pit lane, and Joe 10-second time penalty for corner cutting, and that could be big because that will allow Rich to get back ahead of Joe here. And Matthias in the wall taps the wing, and that could be him potentially falling into the clutches of the Mercedes, as we got Papa Squanch and Salu now coming through the start-finish straight. Where is J. Luke? J. Luke coming out of the pit lane. He's going to be just ahead, I think, on track as they come through. J. Luke into the race lead.
Oh, that's so close, Mike. But let's not forget, J. Luke's tyres are stone cold. Papa Squanch and Salu have had a couple of laps to warm their tyres up. Is that going to make the difference? But what a decision from J. Luke to stay out that lap extra. That was absolutely perfect.
Absolutely, but now this is where things are going to get very spicy here, because you have J. Luke in the race lead, Cole. You have Papa Squanch and Salu, who are going to be right on his rear, potentially going to be using that DRS in a few laps' time to get overtakes done. It's going to be all about who's perfectly poised to take the race lead on the final lap here, as DRS has now been enabled, so that the DRS games begin at the front.
Yeah, so now this is where it gets very interesting.
Rich down in P15. I'm not sure what's happened to him, but he's made a pit stop again, and he's down in P15. He's not on for points right now, so Rich could be losing massively. Papa Squanch into the race lead. Salu's closing in massively, but he's not going for it. And look at that, J. Luke back on the inside, goes too deep. J. Luke has gone off. He's done a 360, 180 spin at the hairpin, and that is now J. Luke arguably completely out of the fight for the race win now, but he's in P3. His teammate out of the points. This is big for the championship. This would have made it much more interesting going into the final race if J. Luke was on for the race win and Rich out of the points altogether. And look at this side-by-side action. Papa Squanch and Salu there into the race lead.
Wow, what a move from Salu. J. Luke, a huge mistake there. Just outbroke himself. He'll be absolutely furious with himself there. But he is still going. He doesn't look like he's got damage, Mike. But like you said, Rich is going to get 0 points. Absolutely no points. I don't know what happened to Rich there. I didn't quite catch it. But a disaster for the Mercedes driver. J. Luke in prime condition now. Can he catch up to the guys in front? It's going to be very difficult, Mike, but they are fighting.
Yeah, they are fighting, and let's not forget right now, obviously, for Papa Squanch and Salu, they are fighting for position, I think, in terms of the championship. As Papa Squanch currently 5th on 90 points, and Salu in 7th on 81 points, as those two are dueling it out to try and be technically the best of the rest outside of the top 4. But let's not forget, we're just down there in P11. This is big for them because they could gain massively and maybe get themselves into that fight for the final spot inside the top 3.
Exactly that. it's going to be huge for them. Can Jess... Now, she's got 2 drivers ahead with penalties, so that's going to help her as well. Joe's got 10 seconds, so that's going to help her a lot. And that's going to be able to jump them. But Mike, Papa, Squanch and Salo, they are just fighting tooth and nail at the minute. And it's going to bring J-Luke back into this.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where we are going to see what is going to happen. Because you've got Jess currently down in P11. Obviously, she's going to jump out a few positions due to the penalties of the cars around her. Joe is currently P4 in the championship. He has a 10-second time penalty. 13 seconds now for Joe with that 3-second popping up. He's going to drop down the order to the bottom end of the points. This is perfect if you are Papa Squanch and Salo, because you can get yourself in a battle for that final trophy here in the Drivers' Championship. You can go for that 3rd place trophy. And Papa Squanch right now, P5, he's 17 points behind Joe, 18 points behind Jess. And in terms of a points gain right now, he's essentially going to be taking that gap to almost nothing going into that final race.
Yeah, it's going to be super tight now. So let's have a look. I will get the standings up, Mike, and I will tell you exactly what the gap will be if this race stays as it is. So J-Luke's going to gain. He's going to be on 15 points. It's going to 1-3-1 to J-Luke and 1-4-3 to Rich. That's going to make it ridiculously interesting. But J-Luke, if this... Even though he's going to gain a lot of points, Mike, I think it's going to be what-ifs for J-Luke. He's pushing really hard, but he's not really catching quick enough.
No, and that is the DRS effect, unfortunately, for J-Luke. He can catch in the first sector, but as soon as that DRS is activated, you're seeing Salo and Papa Squanch obviously just build that gap, as they are keeping this battle strictly between those two. The worst thing that could happen to either Salo or Papa Squanch right now is a 3-second time penalty being awarded to one of them, which will give J-Luke a bit of a boost here in this race, as Joe gets past Cowboy up in the P6. It's actually Cowboy coming straight back up. Side-by-side action between the Alpine and the RB in this race. As Jess gets through on Rageman up into P10. Now goes the Red Bull. What could have been for J-Luke absolutely in this race, but Papa Squanch and Salo, the more they get their elbows out and fight side by side, the more it's going to give J-Luke a little bit of encouragement by you.
It certainly is. Salo's going to be desperate for this victory. Like we said earlier, Mike, he's crossed the line first before, but he's never had the official victory. Is this going to be it? Is this going to be his moment? Papa Squanch, we know how clever he is as a driver. He's waited before for the last lap, saving his ERS. Is that what he's doing here, Mike? Is he waiting till the very last moment to get him? But it's going to be very important that these drivers don't get any penalties at this stage, Mike, because that could be curtains.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at the ERS advantage that Papa Squanch has to Salo right now is absolutely monumental, the advantage that Papa Squanch has. But in my opinion, Papa Squanch, he could get past with DRS, and he could use his ERS to get out that 1 second window, because Salo's got no battery really to respond. As there's been a yellow flag in the background, and is that going to trigger a late safety car in this race? Because that'd be exactly what Rich would need, 100% to get some points out of this. It would allow Joe to get rid of his 10-second time penalty, just to make sure he gets position on track. But no safety car deployed. Right now, Cole, in terms of the championship, it's going to be cut down by 14 points, and there's going to be a 13-point gap going into the final race in Belgium. It could be more still to come for J-Luke, but he needs to hope that calamities strike for either Salo or Papa Squanch up in front. But the way those two are driven today, it's not looking likely.
No, I don't think so. J-Luke, he's not catching them at all. If anything, he's losing time on them. Now, one thing that we haven't thought about, Mike, is the tyre wear. As Cowboy gets a 3-second and he's fighting with Joe. Joe just about getting the manoeuvre done there. Matthias there in 8th place, having a a very good race. I'm just going to see, did he change his front wing? No, Matthias is actually missing 90% of it at this stage, so he's going to be really struggling and dropping down the order. I don't know whether he had an incident. Is that where the incident with Rich came from, Mike? Was it an incident with Matthias? We will have to wait and see and until after the race, but that could be what caused Rich's problems.
Well, you're seeing there at the back, Rich has put on a set of soft tyres. He's making sure he leaves here with something, and that is of course going to be the fastest lap outside of the top 10, which could be crucial because I would give him a 14-point gap. Matthias sends one on the inside. Oh, Proverb goes way too deep. Proverb gets the job done up into P8 as Cowboy and Joe side by side. And it's going to be Cowboy that comes out on top. Who will have the DRS? Will it be Cowboy? Will it be Joe? It's going to be Joe that has the DRS and the overspeed right here. Using a bit of battery. Job done for Joe. But obviously, what Joe needs right now is not to be battling with Cowboy. You need to be working together. Because Joe, with those 13 seconds of time penalties, it's going to plummet down the order. He's just hemorrhaging time by battling with Cowboy.
Yes, exactly that, Mike. And while we were watching a great racing with Cowboy and Joe, Papa Squanch has taken the lead, and he's almost out of DRS, Mike. He's got 60% of his DRS left. Sallow next to sod all. He's got about 11-12%. So this is advantage Papa Squanch with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sallow there getting massively up on that inside curb at the end of the DRS straight. Now coming into the chicane, it's going to be crucial to get a good run out of here. Sallow does get a good run out of here. And I think for Sallow, save your ERS, sit in behind Papa Squanch, go at the last lap. That would be my advice to Sallow if he wants to take the race win here. And for Papa Squanch, it's going to be about just making sure that he's in the right place at the right time and has a good amount of battery to use, because right now he does have 65%. Sallow, he's burning the ERS still at but just over 10%, and that is not going to win Sallow the race, unfortunately.
No, Mike, I think he made a bit of a tactical error.
Oh,
that is Sallow's pretty much done and dusted now. Papa Squanch will just go, thank you very much. I'm just going to follow you home now. So Sallow looks like he's going to be on for another P2. Not going to get that elusive win just yet. A big mistake from Sallow there, Mike. But not the best strategically either. I'm with you, Mike. I think he should have just held behind him and just waited for that final lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And now Papa Squanch is perfectly content and sitting in behind Sallow for the rest of this race. Rageman out of the race, and that is his efforts over and done with. And what that means now, in terms of I mean, we're seeing Squillis going on for a set of sauce, just getting through on Proverb. In terms of, I think, yeah, the gap is way too big. And sorry, I was thinking that Mason with his time penalty would be under a little bit of pressure for that final point paying position, but no, don't mind me, I'm just being an idiot. As Papa Squanch is still closing up to Sallow, and he's going to go for the win on track, that's for sure. We know Papa Squanch, if Sallow could get that 3-second time penalty removed, he's just going to make sure he wins the race on track to take away any hope of Sallow contesting the race win. But what could happen, Cole? Obviously, on this final lap, Sallow with no real ERS to really battle with. If he gets his elbows out, knowing that he can maybe get that 3-second removed with Papa Squanch, it could bring J-Luke back into a net P2 if they lose enough time battling each other.
Yes, he's got to be very careful of losing this second place. Papa Squanch right behind him. Does he want to take the victory on track? Does he want to rely on penalties? Is he going to have a look? No, Mike, he decides against it. But we do have the DRS straight down the back. Rich has set that fastest lap, so he's going to get that 1 point for the fastest lap in the bottom 10. It'd be interesting to see who's going to have the faster lap for the top. Oh, it's Skrillex has got it, is he?
No, it could be Skrillex. I could take it off him last lap. He's on fresh softs right now.
That's true, yes, he could. Let's see what happens there.
Papa Squanch.
And there he goes.
Drive.
Absolutely brilliant. Right through. Saved it to the last minute. And he's going to cross the line. And he's going to win, Mike. Here in Miami. What a drive from Papa Squanch. Thrown everything at him, but he wins here in Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. And J. Luke will cut the championship down to 14 points at the moment due to the fastest lap of the race outside the top 10 going the way of Rich. Quinn with a strong P4 finish, but he'll be demoted to P5 with Funky taking P4 due to that time penalty. Here comes Cowboy across the line. Joe might end up falling behind Jess here, so he's going to end up losing points to Jess in this race, which is not what Joe would want. And yes, Jess pops up in the P7. Joe falls down to P10. As Jamie will get himself 9th place. Matthias up in the P8. Probab in 11th place. Mason crosses the line in P12. Skrillex now. What can Skrillex do? Let's have a look at the fastest lap of the race overall. It is right now Rich on a 128.3. The fastest lap inside the top 10 is also Papa Squanch. So Papa Squanch taking maximum points here tonight. And I'm trying to think if it's been done before. I think Papa Squanch is the first one to do a complete grand slam of the race in terms of the pole position, race win, and the fastest lap inside the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Skrillex did not manage to beat Rich's fastest lap, so Rich will keep that. He will keep that fastest lap, and I'm sure we'll find out what happened to Rich to drop him down the order. I will keep an eye on the P2 chat, Mike, while you go and run us through the final order.
Yeah, absolutely. As we wait for the three drivers to step out onto the podium. For J. Luke, is a fantastic result in terms of points over his teammate. But what could have been for him? Only a P3 in the end. That one mistake locking up into the hairpin really cost him massively. Papa Squanch, though, an incredible drive from start to finish. Salu, what could have been if he didn't pick up that 3-second time penalty at the end of the race. But let's run you through the order one more time. There's Papa Squanch with the race victory ahead of Salu in second place. J. Luke completes the podium in P3 with Funky in P4. Quinn comes home in P5. Cowboy in P6. Jess in P7. P8 goes the way of Matthias. P9 is Jamie's, of course, and then Joe completing the top 10. Now, Probab, I believe, crossed the line in 11th, but he did leave the session, so he's classified down in P14. But I believe it was Probab in 11th, and then Mason in 12th, and then Skrillex and Rich outside the points paying positions. But Rich getting that fastest lap of the race outside of the top 10 and the fastest lap of the race overall. Our two non-finishers were, of course, Rageman and Geist here tonight. And in terms of the championship, it's going to be very, very, very interesting now, Cole. Obviously, we see that the gap between J. Luke and Rich is now down to 14 seconds. Jess gained 6 points in that race. And of course...
wow, so...
Go on.
Yeah, that's big for Jess going into the final race. Rich still got that advantage, obviously, but that's going to make Belgium very, very, very difficult. So, some backstage news. Rich lost it on his own on cold slicks, and he hit the barrier. So, a huge mistake from Rich there. He'll be gutted with that. But he's still got the advantage going into Belgium next week, Mike. But not what he would have wanted. He would have wanted this race and this championship sewn up tonight.
Yeah, and to give you a nice little preview of what is brewing in that battle for third in the championship. Okay, so Jess coming in tonight, 108 points. She gained 6 points. She's on 114 provisionally right now. Joe on 107 points, finished in P10, which is of course 3 points for him, takes him to 110 points. Papa Squanch was on 90 points, picks up 21 points for the race win with the fastest lap inside the top 10. He goes on to 111 points. 3 points separating Jess in third, Papa Squanch in fourth, and 4 points separating third to fifth, going into the final race call.
Oh, it's gonna, Mike. We're gonna need to be a mathematician to keep track of the points next week. It is gonna be absolutely hectic. Don't forget, all these points are provisional, pending any stewards' reports. They will be published on Thursday, so these are not the official classifications. But to be honest, Mike, I didn't see anything really that involved our championship contenders that could change those results. But you never know.
Well, I will put another thing out there as well. Funky with a 4th place finish. A very good 4th place finish for him as well. Puts him on 102 points. So, I mean, 4 drivers battling for third. 12 points separating them, Cole. Going into the final race of the season.
It's gonna be crazy, Mike. I can't wait for next Sunday. It really is gonna be absolutely brilliant. And all the pressure is on Rich.
Yep, absolutely. He does.
The pressure.
Oh, go on.
I mean, did the pressure get to Rich a little bit tonight with that unforced error? We never see Rich do unforced errors. It doesn't happen. I can't remember the last time I saw Rich make an unforced error. So it just shows, I mean, if that happens next week, Mike, J. Luke is champion.
Well, I mean, you say that, but we also saw J. Luke make a very unforced error as well. Lunging it down the inside, getting it all wrong and having to do a quick 180, which cost him fighting for the race win and cemented him in P3 for the remainder of that race. And what could have been for him if he had held it together just a little bit longer and just stuck with those two, used DRS and to save the battery and just time it to perfection. Because you saw at the end, Salu had no ERS to fight with. It could have been 17 points for J. Luke tonight. It could have been 20 points for J. Luke tonight that he could have gained. But that one mistake cost him it.
Yeah, and that could be vital. Come the end, this time next week, Mike. I believe it's my turn for the first pick for driver of the day.
Oh, you're going to do it to me, Inyo. You're going to do it to me.
I'm going to do it to you.
Oh, God.
And due to the manner in which the driver drove tonight and the way he won, I have to give it to Papa Squanch. Like you said, Mike, our first Grand Slammer, he got the fastest lap, he got pole, and he won the race. Absolutely perfect. His strategy calls were bang on. His racecraft was perfect. I have to give it to Papa Squanch. So my question for you, Papa, is how pleased were you to see Salo get that 3 seconds so you didn't have to overtake him? But how pleased are you to get another victory in One Hub? And how much boost of this is to your confidence for the new game out in just a few short weeks?
That will be a very interesting question being answered there from Papa Squanch. Now, you put me in a pickle, but you have put me in a bit of a pickle. I am torn right now between 2 drivers because I do want to give credit, even though he picked up the 3 second at the end, I do want to give credit to Salu. There is another driver who went underrated in the race, in my opinion. And that is the man that finished in P4, Funky.
Yeah.
So I'm torn between those two, and honestly, Joe, I'm gonna have to give it to Salu. His pace in the wet, and he carved his way through the field to get himself into third. I'm gonna give it to Salu, and my question for Salu would be: commiserations, mate, but a fantastic race for yourself, nonetheless. Did you think, obviously, after the qualifying, that you would have the pace to carve your way through the field to get yourself into the positions where you was fighting for the race win towards the end. And do you think that will give you the confidence to go for the race win in Belgium next week?
Yeah, that's a very well-deserved driver of the day. You feel as though a victory is just round the corner for Salo. He's our Neely man. I'm sure it's going to be coming very, very soon. But another great podium from Salo.
Yeah, absolutely, and a fairly well-deserved podium for him as well. Guys, as mentioned, we got the season finale next week in Belgium. We head to Spa-Francorchamps for the final time here in season 26. We have the Drivers' Championship up for grabs, and now, Cole, I think we can 100% confirm. We were debating back and forth whether or not they sealed the constructors, but we know now 100% it's confirmed. It is Mercedes, the constructors' championship in P2, and 14 points separating J-Luke and Rich, the two Mercedes drivers, going into the final race of the season at Belgium, and 4 points separating 3 drivers in that fight for third place. Papa Squanch, Jess, and of course Joe going into Belgium. Outside chance as well for Funky and Salo maybe to get themselves in the mix as well. Probably a little bit too far for Salo, but Funky, outside chance for him. It's going to be a very interesting end to the season, that is for sure. We'll be back next week for P2 in Belgium. Of course, make sure you guys come back in about 20 minutes time as P1 will be underway, as the P1 drivers will do a battle here in Miami. Jess and of course J. Cole are going to be taking you through the action on that one. But from myself, Mike, actually, before we go, I almost forgot, but I didn't forget. I remembered. Massive shout out to our sponsors and partners here at One Hub Racing, to Next Level Racing, to Pure Sim Gear, to Vespa Twin, and of course Sim Grid, as well as the Mental Health Foundation. Thank you guys for the support throughout the entirety of the One Hub season. But Cole, the final race of the season next week is all built up for this. Who will be the season 26 champion?
I mean, it's going to be absolutely epic, isn't it? It's going to... I can't even call it, especially after tonight's race. I just can't wait for next Sunday. Don't miss it, guys. It's going to be a belter.
Yeah, absolutely. And you will catch us next week to bring you through the action. But for myself, Michael Edwards, from Colin Mason, we'll catch you next week for the season finale in Belgium. Who will be the P2 champion in season 26? Only one way to find out. Tune in next week. But until then, guys, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Colin. Good night.